Secondly, the true inquirer is one whose courage is of that rare kind which enables its possessor to stand upright and to sound his own clear note in the very midst of the turmoil of the world. He is one who has the eye trained to see beyond the fogs and miasmas of the earth to that center of peace which presides over all earth's happenings, and that trained attentive ear which, having caught a whisper of the voice of the silence, is kept tuned to that high vibration, and is thus deaf to all lesser alluring voices. This again brings loneliness, and produces that aloofness which all less evolved souls feel when in the presence of those who are forging ahead. A paradoxical situation is brought about from the fact that the disciple is told to inquire the way, and yet there is none to tell him. Those who know the way may not speak, knowing that the path is constructed by the aspirant as the spider spins its web out of the center of its own being. Obey the inward impulses of the soul. It is no easy or flattering task to find oneself out and to discover that perhaps even the service we have rendered and are longing to study and work has had a basically selfish origin and resting on a desire for liberation or a distaste for the humdrum duties of every day. He who seeks to obey the impulses of the soul has to cultivate an accuracy of summation and a truthfulness with himself which is rare indeed these days. Let him say to himself, I must to my own self be true, and in the private moments of his life and in the secrecy of his own meditation let him not gloss over one fault, nor excuse himself along a single line. Let him learn to diagnose his own words, deeds, and motives, and to call things by their true names. Only thus will he train himself in spiritual discrimination and learn to recognize truth in all things. Only thus will the reality be arrived at and the true self known. Pay no consideration to the prudential considerations of worldly science and understanding. If the aspirant has need to cultivate a capacity to be truthful in all things, he has likewise need to cultivate courage. It will be needful for him to run counter consistently to the world's opinion, and to the very best expression of that opinion, and this with frequency. He has to learn to do the right thing as he sees and knows it, irrespective of the opinion of earth's greatest and most quoted. He must depend upon himself and upon the conclusions he himself has come to in his moments of spiritual communion and illumination. It is here that so many aspirants fail. They do not do the very best they know. They fail to act in detail as their inner voice tells them. They leave undone certain things which they are prompted to do in their moments of meditation, and fail to speak the word which their spiritual mentor, the self, urges them to speak. It is in the aggregate of these unaccomplished details that the big failures are seen. There are no trifles in the life of the disciple, and an unspoken word or unfulfilled action may prove the factor which is holding a man from initiation. Live a life which is an example to others. Is it necessary for me to enlarge upon this? It seems as if it should not be, and yet here again is where men fail. What, after all, is group service? Simply the life of example. He is the best exponent of the ageless wisdom who lives each day in the place where he is the life of the disciple. He does not live it in the place where he thinks he should be. Perhaps the quality which produces the greatest number of failures among aspirants to adeptship is cowardice. Men fail to make good where they are, because they find some reason which makes them think they should be elsewhere. Men run away, almost unrealizing it, from difficulty, from inharmonious conditions, from places which involve problems, and from circumstances which call for action of a high sort, and which are staged to draw out the best that is in a man, provided he stays in them. They flee from themselves and from other people, instead of simply living the life. The adept speaks no word which can hurt, harm, or wound. Therefore he has had to learn the meaning of speech in the midst of life's turmoil. He wastes no time in self-pity or self-justification, for he knows the law has placed him where he is, and where he best can serve, and has learned that difficulties are ever of a man's own making, and the result of his own mental attitude. If the incentive to justify himself occurs, he recognizes it as a temptation to be avoided. He realizes that each word spoken, each deed undertaken, and every look and thought has its effect for good or for evil upon the group. Is it not apparent, therefore, why so few achieve and so many fail? From a treatise on white magic, pages 583 through 587. This is a continuation of topic 41, Disciples. 11. Some words of cheer. It is only as the disciple is willing to relinquish all in the service of the Great One, and to hold naught back, that liberation is achieved, and the body of desire becomes transmuted into the body of the higher intuition. It is the serving perfectly each day, with no thought or calculation about the future, that brings a man to the position of the perfect server. And may I suggest one thing? All care and anxiety is based primarily on selfish motive. You fear further pain. You shrink from further sad experience. It is not thus that the goal is reached. It is reached by the path of renunciation. Perhaps it may mean the renunciation of joy, or the renunciation of good reputation, or the renunciation of friends, and the renunciation of all that the heart clings to. I say perhaps. I say not, it is so. I but seek to point out to you that if that is the way you are to reach your goal, then for you it is the perfect way. Aught that brings you rapidly to their presence and to their lotus feet is by you to be desired and eagerly welcomed. Cultivate daily, therefore, that supreme desire that seeks solely the commendation of the inner guide and teacher, and the egoic response to good action dispassionately performed. Should bereavement come your way, smile through it all. It will end in a rich reward and the return of all that has been lost. Should scorn and despising be your lot, smile still, for only the look of commendation that comes from the Master is the one to seek. Should lying tongues take action, fear not, but forge ahead. A lie is a thing of earth, and can be left behind as a thing too vile to be touched. The single eye, the unalloyed desired, the consecrated purpose, and the ear that turns in deafness to all earth's noise, such is the aim for the disciple. I say no more. I but desire that you do not dissipate needless force in vain imaginings, feverish speculations, and troubled expectations. From Letters on Occult Meditation, pages 43 through 44. 12. The problem of all disciples remains the same. This is to live simultaneously the acutely sensitive inner life of the pilgrim upon the path of life, of a human being in the world of human events, to live the group life of the pledged disciple and the mass life of humanity, to fulfill his own spiritual destiny through the medium of a controlled personality, and at the same time to participate fully in the life of humanity upon earth. This is no easy task. From a treatise on the Seven Rays, Volume 3, Esoteric Astrology, page 498. 13. The disciple has to take himself as he is, at any time, with any given equipment, and under any given circumstances. He then proceeds to subordinate himself, his affairs, and his time to the need of the hour, particularly during the phase of group, national, or world crisis. When he does this within his own consciousness and is therefore thinking along lines of the true values, he will discover that his own private affairs are taken care of, his capacities are increased, and his limitations are forgotten. From Telepathy and the Etheric Vehicle, page 196. 14. The mobilization of every disciple is demanded at this time, and when I say this time, I refer to the present time and the next 50 years. This mobilization involves the focusing of the disciple's energies, his time and his resources on behalf of humanity. It requires a new dedication to service, a consecration of the thought life. Do you realize what that would mean, my brothers? And a forgetfulness of self which would rule out all moods and feelings, all personality desires, resentments, grievances, and all pettiness in your relationships with your fellow men. On the physical plane, it would mean the conditioning of all active outer living so that the whole of life becomes one focused active service. I would ask you to study the above phrasing, using it as a light of revelation, so that you may know wherein you are lacking and what you have to do. From Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 1, pages 98 through 99. 15. What I and all who are affiliated with the hierarchy seek to do at this time of desperate crisis is to find those who are dependable points of living energy, and through them pour out the love, the strength, and the light which the world needs and must have if this storm is to be weathered. Many disciples are not young, and the settled habit of thought and of the feeling life is not easy to disrupt. They must, however, be disrupted and must feel no resentment. From Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 1, page 100. 16. Disciples and advanced egos on the probationary path receive instruction to test out their fitness for special work lying in the future, the type of that work being known only to the guides of the race. They are tested for aptitude in community living with a view to drafting the suitable ones into the colony of the sixth sub-race. They are tested for various lines of work, many incomprehensible to us now, but which will become ordinary methods of development as time progresses. From Initiation, Human and Solar, page 66. See also the 6 stages of discipleship. From Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 1, pages 673 through 773.